Welcome to Sober Solutions. We are a weekly recovery podcast not affiliated with any particular 12-step or recovery program. However, you may hear us mention them. My name is Jason, and I'm an alcoholic and addict.
My name is Chris, and I'm an alcoholic and addict.
My name is Ben. I'm an alcoholic and addict.
And welcome back to the Sober Solutions podcast. This is episode 4, and tonight we're going to be talking about spirituality. But before we get into that, I want to say I'm very excited about tonight's episode. We have our first guest ever, and that is Cathy A. We're very excited to have her joining us from New York. And Cathy and I met at a roundup in Rehoboth. She does national workshops on Drop the Rock, which I'm sure she'll talk about with us tonight. And she's going to be giving us a little insight on what spirituality is as it relates to recovery. So, Cathy, it's so nice to see you. And thank you so much for spending your evening with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Cathy, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your story?
Okay. Thank you so very much. First and foremost, I'm humbled and honored to have been invited to come in and spend some time this evening with all of you and to speak about spirituality and recovery. I'm just honored. So I just have to get that out there. Thank you so very much. Just a little bit about me, because I don't really talk about me a whole lot, because when I'm talking about me, just me as the person, then I'm talking about the problem. And I live in the solution today. So I really don't want to talk about the problem, because me left to my own devices and self-will, I'm the problem. But, just for the sake of getting you a little bit familiar with who I am, my name is Cathy, and I do identify as an alcoholic and an addict. Probably identify as many other things, but we'll keep it to that right now. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I don't know if anybody's picked up on that, like immediately. I never know what gives it away. Sometimes I think, is it my hair? Is it the way I dress? And then people tell me it's no, the way you talk. And I'm like, no, it's the way you talk. Anyhow, so yes, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Very much a Brooklynite. I now reside in Queens. But, Brooklyn is my heart, but New York is my home. So, just a little bit about me. I grew up in a home, where alcohol was just part of everyday life. I often refer to my family as the CIA. I don't want anybody getting nervous hearing that, because they weren't going to arrest you. They were the CIA, Catholic Irish alcoholics. So, and Catholic, I tell you what Catholic looked like. Here's what Catholic looked like. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, you goddamn kids, you're going to kill me. So that was the extent of us being Catholic, that my mother would scream, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I had no idea who these three people were. Okay. So Irish, but of course, auburn hair, freckles, blue eyes. I happen to have green eyes, but everybody had blue eyes, skinny legs, beer bellies, freckles, and veiny noses. You know what an alcoholic looks like, right? So, and alcoholic, they we just drank. They just drank. I grew up with something always missing, and I'm so glad that we're talking about spirituality, because, I'm going to bring it like into my story. Like, there was always something missing. So, like, if we had peanut butter, we didn't have jelly. Like, if I had cereal, I didn't have milk. If I had potatoes, there was no meat. There was always something missing. It was never whole and complete. So I was always looking for something. Okay. And then at a young age, I found something, and it came in the form of marijuana. Okay. At about the age of 12, I think I was about 12 years old. And I remember smoking marijuana for the first time. I don't know if you've ever seen, I don't know, some of you might be younger than me, but there's a version of The Wizard of Oz. I know you're younger than me.
Oh, yeah.
There's a version of The Wizard of Oz where it's in black and white, and then all of a sudden, once they hit that it turns color. Well, that happened. That's what happened. I smoked pot and my world all of a sudden had color. I said, this is amazing. So anyway, so I did that, and and at a very young age, that was not always accessible. So I don't know if there's anybody who can identify with this, but growing up in a home where alcohol was present all the time, I declared I would not drink. I am not going to drink because I cleaned up the aftermath of alcohol long before. I learned this term called powerlessness, and I came to realize that I was powerless over this long before I had even put it into my own body, because I was surrounded by it and I had no control of it. And I cleaned up the aftermath of it over and over again. And I said that would never happen for me. But you know what happens, always and never are two words that we should always never use, because, they're going to happen. So of course, then, I found alcohol. And when I say I found alcohol, I mean, I found alcohol, guys. I found like Colt 45, Old English 800, Mad Dog. I'm talking top shelf stuff, $2.49 a bottle. The really good stuff that you got, at the bodega in Bushwick. So anyway, so then I began to drink, and and we all know what happens. That with those substances combined took me all the way into my 30s. And what I called it was a chase, because I was always looking for something, because I was never happy with the way things were. Things were missing. Remember, I had no peanut butter, I had no jelly, I had no eggs, I had no, everything was always missing. I didn't have the cool sneakers. I didn't have the mother that, I wanted my friends to see. Like everything was missing. Everything was missing for me. So I'm seeking and seeking and seeking. And, so I found this way to get out of myself. So that took me all the way into, my 30s. Yeah, I believe my 30s, 40s, maybe. No, 30s, mid to late 30s. And I found a program of recovery. And I'm just going to leave it at that. It's not necessarily how I found it. I will tell you that I didn't come here to stay. They tell you, stay at the end of the thing, stay. No, I didn't come to stay. I came to put a Band-Aid on a situation. And I didn't stay when I first came. I did not stay. I went through the revolving doors a couple of times. That's my journey. And October 31st, 1999, I stayed. And I've been here ever since. So, what does it look like now for me? Now it looks like service. Service. I still want what you have. I still want what this fellowship has, what this program has to offer. I want it. I'm hungry for it every single day. And I've grown in it, and I've fallen in it. I fell on my face in recovery, and I've gotten up, and I've been lifted to my highest in recovery, one day at a time. So, that's a little bit of where I come from. I do, as I know about, I have another minute or so. I do, as Jason referred, I get the privilege to travel the U.S., not in the past year, however, in the past 15 years, to travel the U.S. and talk about this program all over. I've even gone international. And a privilege it has been. I am honored to be a trusted servant and a member of a program of recovery that gives me the opportunity to do this. So that's a little bit about myself. I didn't want to give you, the whole thing. It's my story, is your story. Put a skirt on it, put a pair of pants, 1971, 69, 89. It's the same story. We're here. So that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome, Cathy. First of all, thank you so much for your story. That Wizard of Oz moment that you had, I really, really identified with. When I started getting into my addiction, because I have drugs and alcohol as part of my addiction as well. I couldn't have put it better myself. You know, it went from that black and white life to that color life. But through my addiction, it got back to that black and white life. And then everything was so dark and dreary again until finally I found sobriety, and sobriety brought color and life back to my life. So it's such the cycle. I really appreciate that. And, you know, I also have relapse as part of my story. So does Chris. I'm sure, you know, he'll talk about that a little bit too. But, you know, one of the first questions that I want to kind of get into is on the topic of spirituality. And what does spirituality mean to you and your sobriety?
Oh, loaded question, but I love it. Thank you for asking it. What does spirituality mean to me and my sobriety? It means everything. Now, for me, spirituality, and I invite anyone who's listening to try this idea on, because, you know, if we're waiting for this, you know, spiritual experience to happen, how's that going? You know, because it might have happened already and we're busy waiting for something that we think it's supposed to look like, and it's not happening. So, you know, for me, spirituality, as I said to you in my story, I was always looking to get. And what I found out that spirituality was about letting go of. So spirituality for me is not about addition, it is about subtraction. And, you know, when you talked about drop the rock, the study in the program of recovery of the steps we call step 6 and 7, letting go of all those character defects and those shortcomings, that is spirituality. For me, spirituality is action. So how is it a part of my recovery? My recovery is a part of my everyday life. My spirituality is a part of my recovery. It's part of my action. It's a part of who I am. It's my purpose for living. So, you know, spirituality is my life, and I declare it that way. I just want to say this for anyone who's struggling. You know, spirituality is so fluid. You know, so if you're thinking it's supposed to look a certain way, no, resign from that idea. Spirituality, your spirituality will look the way you create it. So we are the creators with the universe, the God of your understanding, the power, the source, whatever it is that you call it. You in unison, oneness with them will just create this spiritual being, which we call human. So I hope I answered the question.
No, that was great. That was great. I have one question before I ask my question. What part of Brooklyn were you from?
Oh, Williamsburg.
Oh, yeah. My wife's from Bay Ridge. She's quite the feisty Italian.
Oh, yes.
We actually just came from L&B's this weekend.
Oh, so, L&B's, the pizza place?
Yeah, Spumoni's. Yep.
That is the...
I know every Brooklynite, you know, loves that.
It's the best. Now, exactly. That's the other side of Brooklyn. Brooklyn is the largest borough, so it's the other side. But yes, awesome. Awesome. Right. What's your next question?
Yeah. No, I was thinking about a couple things. You know, I as well always had that something missing. But the question I keep going back to is, I had a very hard time with spirituality and religion, probably because at the time I was using. And I would love your opinion on the difference that you think, in a recovery sense, the difference between spirituality and religion. And that's a lot of people in all programs have a tough time with the whole religion and spirituality aspect.
Yes, perfect question, Chris. And, you know, because I'm, you know, an addicted person, I could go on a tangent. So I wrote some things down in preparation for, because, you know, I have to keep myself, you know, centered. Again, spirituality is an action. So I have to take an action to keep myself focused and in the purpose and usefulness of this evening in this session. So here, it's a perfect question, because religion is a specific set of organized beliefs and practices usually shared by a community or group, right? So if you're Catholic, you're Buddhist, you're Protestant, you're I don't know, you're Jewish, you know, but whatever it is that this community or group that is organized and has the same beliefs comes together. So that's religion, and that's great, okay, if that's where you fill that hole of the donut. Now, spirituality is an individual practice, and it has to do with having a sense of peace. Spiritual practice is a regular performance of actions and activities. So, spirituality and religion can come together, and they can come together and just fit so divinely and perfectly for those that bring them together. But not all of us do that. I personally do not. I don't know a thing about religion. Well, that's not true. I am fascinated by religion. I will tell you that. And I learn about it. And I want to know, why do they do those practices? And how come this and how come that? And I learn with such an inquisitive mind. But that is me just exploring, which is a part of spirituality also, just exploring the beliefs of other people, because I love other people. That again is another spiritual thing. I love people. I respect people. I admire people. I'm in awe of people. You practice that? I want to understand why. Tell me about it. And I'm in awe of listening. But spirituality is completely an individual inside occurrence. So, it doesn't happen in a building with a cross outside. It doesn't happen, in a temple. It doesn't happen in a shrine. Spirituality, can happen, walk into the supermarket. So I hope that I answered your question and gave you some insight on that for myself.
Yeah, one thing that I heard was spirituality is an inside job.
Yes.
It's right here inside me.
It's totally, listen, we come into recovery and we're given this blueprint for life, right? And we're given these principles that we follow, and then, spirituality, like, I want to say, have fun with it. Spirituality is not something I'm sitting here waiting, oh, I want to get more spiritual, I'm waiting for something. No, spirituality is an action. Have fun with it. Invite it in. Say, if something occurred, could you have the perception of that being a spiritual experience? Or was that just a coincidence? Or, oh, interesting how that came about. No. Where is the fun and excitement in that? Listen, I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic. I chased fun and excitement. So now I chase it in my recovery, and I chase it in spirituality. I'm like, oh my God, that is so amazing that it went that way. But of course it did, because that's how the spirit works. So,
Cathy, I love listening to you. I'm having trouble remembering that I'm supposed to be interviewing you and not just listening.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that you said that really stuck out was that when you said you have the privilege, and that is one of the things for me is I don't have to work this program. I get to, and it is it's taken time. But one of the things has been finding a routine that works for me. And so I was wondering if you could, share with us in your daily routine in life, how do you work spirituality into that?
Okay. So for me, it's quite simple. And listen, again, it's designed by every individual, and it's whatever you declare to be spiritual. So for me, it's quite simple. Upon arising in the morning, I do not say any kind of religious prayers. I don't, even at the end of the meeting when they do that, I get a little challenged with it. But that's just for me, and I'm speaking my truth. But upon awakening in the morning, before I get out of bed, I say thank you. And I may even name things like, thank you that I slept well. Thank you, this pillow's really great. Thank you that I'm going to get up and I'm working today. Just like the simple stuff. And then I'll think about, I have a couple of grandkids. I think about my grandkids. Thank you for that. So I just continuously say thank you. So I'm already arising in gratitude. gratitude is it's like spirituality is a recipe. So, now, when this recipe's been passed on from generation to generation, you tend to throw a little more of that and a little less of that, and you still got the same recipe, but, you kind of make it work for yourself, because who likes it a little spicier? Who likes it a little saltier? Who likes it a little sweeter? So gratitude for me is a huge ingredient in my recipe of sobriety, of spirituality. So I do that, and I talk to God. And I talk to God like I'm talking to you. I don't talk to God like in some kind of, in tongues. Not that anything is wrong with that. I do know people who do communicate in tongues. That's not me. I just look up sometimes and I'm like, okay, God, help me with this, because I'm having a hard time, especially in the past 14 months. Oh my God, did I have to depend on the 20 years of practice in being spiritual? Did I not have to use them in the past year? So, it's just quite that simple. I do manage to take a walk. For me, that is very spiritual, to take a walk, even if it's only around my block. That's a spiritual action. Again, spirituality is about action. And then it's about, who am I being? My spirituality for me is about peace, right? My peace is contingent on the peace I bring to others. So how am I being of service? How am I lifting another human being? How am I lifting them up in my words and in my being? So those are my daily practices, and I do that on a daily basis. I'm in touch with people all day long, whether it's professionally, just in the realm of recovery, as friends. Those are part of my everyday practices.
That's, for me, hearing you say something like that is just one of the things that, I struggled with this idea that you had to do it a certain way. You had to say the third step prayer. I never have felt that, for whatever reason. Listening to you speak, when I wake up, I'm like, hey, thanks for another day. Like, and when I pray, it's not, I hear people talk about hitting their knees, and some days I have to hit my knees, but for the most part, it's just I look up and go, man, I need a little help today. Like, just give me a hand, strength, patience, courage. Just give me something, and I know it's gonna, and I think the thing that I heard was that in all your affairs, be grateful, do the next right thing. Just, that's it. It's so simple. And I think really for our listeners that, we're all in pretty early recovery. So to hear somebody with so much time say, I've done it my own way, is a beautiful thing, because it's based in the simple principles of gratitude, doing the next right thing, and helping others. And so as long as you do those things, as long as I do those things, I think I'm doing what I can today. So throw it to Jason.
Ben, I'm just going to piggyback off of that, because I believe the same thing. And Cathy, what I heard from you is prayer is just a conversation.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be this recited verse. I know friends who talk to their higher power like they're talking to their best friend. And if I am that connected to my spiritual program, if I'm that connected to my higher power or God or whatever we want to call it, then that is my best friend. It's part of me. It's part of who I am. And for me, I identify that as energy. Energy is in everything, and it's constantly changing, and it's in the earth and animals and people. And if I'm honoring my higher power, that's energy, then I am, doing good to others. I'm being good to myself. And that's what it is for me. But one thing I really got out of this is you waking up every morning and saying how grateful you are for things. And earlier you said, that's not a coincidence. Maybe gratitude is a spiritual experience.
It is. It is.
And I really got that. I really got that. So, we'll wrap up with this. You've been absolutely wonderful, and you've given me a lot of advice. And for our listeners, what's some advice that you can give them to anyone who might be listening who is struggling with their sobriety right now?
Oh, struggling with your sobriety right now, I'm going to tell you, stay close, stay connected to people. Talk about what you're feeling. Be vulnerable. We don't have to live in the idea that I got this. It's okay not to have it for today. What's not okay is not expressing that you don't have it for today. So, anyone who is struggling with their recovery today, I plead with you to just hang on. They say, don't give up before the miracle. See, but did anybody ever tell you what the miracle was?
Yeah, that's a great point. No one has ever answered that question for me.
Right. Well, because it's all a miracle. So don't leave before the miracle. So, I can't go. I'm waiting for this here miracle. That's but the miracle is happening moment by moment. Now. Oh, I wish I had a watch. It said, what time is it? Oh, it's now. Oh, it's now. So don't leave. Everything is a miracle. That's, it's perception. So if you're struggling with your recovery, hang on, talk about it. I hope you have a sponsor. I hope you have people that you can call and just say, listen, I'm really having a hard time, and if you have to just keep it in the day, I'm not going to pick up for this hour. Okay, great. Call me again at 4. I did that in the beginning. I called my sponsor every hour. Okay, so now go have something to eat, go brush your teeth, go do this, call me in an hour. And I called it an hour. And you know what? An hour, a day, a week, a month. And I
Yep. Yep. One thing that I always say is baby steps in the right direction is still progress.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, Cathy, speaking of getting in touch, I know that you have a website, and why don't you tell our listeners what that is?
Okay, thank you so much. I have a website, and the name of my website is CathyLifeCoach.com. It's Cathy with a C, CATHY, lifecoach.com. I am a credentialed certified life coach. I am also a retreat leader, personal retreats, organization retreats, Matt Talbot retreats. I lead workshops throughout the U.S. Probably 75% of what I do is in the realm of recovery, but not limited to. What I specialize in is relationships and communication. See, because
Awesome.
Spirituality is again an action. So if I'm not speaking spiritual, who am I kidding?
Exactly.
I cannot be spiritual here and talking garbage out of my mouth. They don't, it's not a recipe that they go together. So, and relationships. Just, I would like the listeners just for one moment, just to think about your whole life consists of relationships. If you didn't have relationships, you wouldn't have any kind of a life. Unless, you're just going to watch Netflix forever, which some of us are doing that.
Exactly. Which in a pandemic, I have been doing a lot of.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Cathy. We really appreciate you taking time to speak with us tonight and really get us connected to spirituality, what it means, and how we could really put it into our daily life. Thank you so much for listening to our episode. As always, each and every single one of our episodes is dedicated to the alcoholic and the addict who are still sick and suffering, especially the individual who's going to pick up for the first time tonight. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'd like to close with saying, if you're not happy, change your mind.
We appreciate your liking and subscribing to our podcast. If you liked what you heard today and would like to support our podcast, feel free to Venmo $1 to our virtual basket at Sober Solutions Podcast. We want to hear from you too. If you have a comment, question, topic, or would like to come on the show, Find us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at Sober Solutions Podcast. Or you can shoot us an email to sobersolutionspodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And if you like what you've heard, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show.